Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Anita discovers a devastating secret about her niece Chelsea, a truth that unravels the fabric of everything she thought she knew about her family. What should have been a night of triumph for Chelsea, a celebration of her work and the official launch of her ambitious new project, transforms into a nightmare when she mysteriously vanishes in the middle of her own event. The lights, the guests, the champagne flutes and the flashes of camera, soul of it is swallowed by confusion as Anita notices her niece is no longer present, her absence like a ghost lingering at the edges of the crowd. At first, the thought is brushed aside, perhaps Chelsea had slipped away for a private call or needed a quiet corner to catch her breath. But as minutes turn into hours and repeated attempts to reach her phone go unanswered, anxiety begins to thrum beneath Anita's ribs like a persistent drum. Chelsea's parents, Danny and Bill, are equally unsettled. Danny's face stiffens with worry as she clutches her phone, redialing again and again, hearing nothing but the hollow ring that goes nowhere. Bill, who masks his concern with flashes of irritation, paces the floor, muttering about Chelsea's irresponsibility, but his eyes betray a flicker of fear that refuses to stay hidden. The tension between them, normally thick and unyielding, is momentarily redirected toward the missing daughter they share. Anita, standing between them, feels the responsibility pressing against her like a heavy weight. She was the one who promised to keep an eye on Chelsea during this crucial evening, yet now Chelsea has slipped through her fingers as though the night itself had conspired to steal her away. A ghost from her past whose presence still lingers in the most suffocating ways. Allison has always carried an air of unpredictability, a dangerous magnetism mixed with a cruelty that borders on obsession. In a private, dimly lit room away from the crowded celebration, Chelsea lies slumped in a chair, her wrists bound tightly, the acrid sting of chemicals still burning faintly in her nose from the sedative Allison used to overpower her. The faint hum of a ventilation system is the only sound that accompanies her shallow breathing, as Allison's shadow looms in and out of sight. For Chelsea, the past she thought she had escaped has clawed its way back with vicious hands, pulling her into a nightmare she thought she would never revisit. Back at the venue, Madison feels the stirrings of unease tightening in her chest. She has tried to shake it off, to convince herself that Chelsea is merely preoccupied, but every passing moment only sharpens the edge of her anxiety. Madison has always been attuned to Chelsea in a way few others are, noticing the smallest changes in her tone, her smile, or the rhythm of her breathing. Tonight, the silence speaks volumes, louder than words, and it is unbearable. Anita notices this disquiet, the way Madison glances around with nervous energy, and it sparks her own suspicions. Madison has been close to Chelsea for some time now, but the depth of that closeness has always been a mystery to Anita. As the crowd begins to thin and the night grows colder, Anita confronts Madison directly, her voice low but edged with urgency, demanding to know what she is hiding. The revelation hits Anita like a thunderclap. Madison admits that she and Chelsea are not just friends, they have been secretly seeing each other, bound together by something deeper, something that Chelsea had never confessed to her family. For Anita, the shock is twofold: the hidden relationship itself and the realization that Chelsea had kept such a critical part of her life concealed from the very people who loved her most. Yet beneath the surprise, Anita recognizes the raw fear in Madison's eyes, a fear that tells her this connection is not casual infatuation but something rooted in genuine love. Madison's voice trembles as she continues, confessing her gnawing suspicions about Chelsea's ex, Allison. Her words spill out in a rush, as though the truth has been caged within her for too long. She recounts incidents from the past, chilling stories of Allison's volatility, the strange manipulations, the outbursts that Chelsea had endured in silence. There were moments, Madison says, when Allison seemed capable of anything, acts of cruelty designed not just to control but to break Chelsea down, to remake her in Allison's twisted image. Listening to this, Anita feels her stomach turn, her mind racing with the possibilities of what Chelsea might be enduring at his very moment. The room tilts slightly as she realizes that what Madison describes is not just eccentricity or jealousy but a pattern of torment, and perhaps worse. When Chelsea's parents are told of these revelations, The air fractures. Danny's eyes well with tears as the realization dawns that her daughter had suffered silently under the shadow of someone so dangerous. Bill, however, reacts with fury, his face contorting with rage not just at Allison but at himself for not having seen it sooner. The idea that someone had hurt Chelsea, had dared to strip away her sense of safety and dignity, ignites something primal in him. His fists clench as he swears under his breath that he will find Allison, that he will tear apart every corner of the city if he must, until his daughter is returned. The fury that once fueled arguments with Danny now redirects itself with frightening intensity toward a new target, giving him the clarity of a man with nothing left to lose. Anita watches the scene unfold, torn between her own guilt and her protective instinct. She knows Bill's temper well, knows that his recklessness might just as easily endanger Chelsea as save her. Yet she cannot deny the necessity of action, of doing something before it is too late. Madison stands beside her, her hands trembling but her voice steady as she insists that Allison is capable of things that none of them want to believe. The stories she shares grow darker as the night wears on. Moments when Chelsea had come home bruised, excuses that never quite added up, or sudden silences when Allison's name was mentioned. Each memory builds a portrait of a woman unhinged, a woman whose obsession has grown into something monstrous. As the hours stretch into the early morning, Danny and Bill find themselves side by side once more, their shared grief carving away at the wall of resentment that has long divided them. The arguments of the past, financial struggles, misunderstandings, the slow erosion of intimacy suddenly seem trivial in the face of their daughter's disappearance. Danny, who once bristled at Bill's stubbornness, now sees in him the raw determination of a father who will stop at nothing to protect his child. Bill, in turn, recognizes Danny's quiet resilience, the strength that has carried Chelsea through countless storms. For the first time in years, they stand united, if not as lovers, then as parents bound by the same desperate hope. Whether this fragile unity will hold beyond the crisis remains uncertain, but for now, it is enough. Anita, however, cannot shake the haunting image of Chelsea trapped somewhere unseen. She replays Madison's words over and over, each detail sharpening her fear. She wonders if Chelsea had ever tried to tell her, if perhaps there had been signs she had ignored out of convenience or denial. The thought gnaws at her, a bitter guilt that fuels her determination. She knows that silence is no longer an option, that whatever shadow Allison has cast must be dragged into the light, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Chelsea stirs in her confinement, the fog of sedation beginning to lift. The ropes cut into her wrists as she struggles weakly, her mind clouded by the lingering effects of the drug. Allison watches her from across the room, eyes glinting with a mixture of triumph and desperation. "You thought you could leave me," Allison whispers, her voice dripping with venomous tenderness. "But you were never meant to escape." Chelsea tries to speak, her throat raw, but the words come out as little more than a rasp. Allison crouches beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face with chilling intimacy. To Allison, this abduction is not an act of violence but of reclamation, a deranged reunion with the one she refuses to let go. Back in the city, Bill begins his frantic search, reaching out to old contacts, digging through fragments of information that might lead him to Allison. His desperation makes him reckless, willing to follow even the faintest lead if it offers a sliver of hope. Danny pleads for caution, fearing that his rage will only make matters worse, but Bill's resolve is unshakable. Every clue, every whispered rumor about Allison's whereabouts, becomes fuel for his obsession. He is a man driven by equal parts love and fury, and he will not stop until Chelsea is safe or until he burns himself out trying. The tension among them all grows as the hours tick by without news. Anita finds herself caught between her brother's fury, her sister-in-law's quiet grief, and Madison's rising panic. The weight of responsibility presses harder than ever, and she begins to wonder if the family's survival depends not just on finding Chelsea but on confronting the truths they have long avoided. Chelsea's secret relationship, Allison's cruelty, Bill and Danny's fractured bundle of it has been dragged into the open, demanding reckoning. And somewhere, just beyond their reach, Chelsea waits, her life hanging in the balance as Allison's grip tightens. The night is far from over, and the gates that once promised safety now seem to open only toward danger. Chelsea's consciousness flickers like a dimming light bulb as she listens to the faint shuffle of Allison moving about the room. Her wrists ache from the ropes, and her throat burns with every shallow breath. The air is stale, heavy with the odor of chemicals, and her body screams for escape even as her mind struggles to piece together how long she has been missing. She knows only that Allison is unpredictable, and that unpredictability is the sharpest edge of danger. Every moment spent in silence is a reminder of how close she is to losing herself entirely. Allison circles her like a predator savoring its captive prey, speaking in fragments that swing between affection and accusation. One moment she calls Chelsea the only one who ever truly saw me, and the next she hisses about betrayal, about how Chelsea humiliated her by leaving. Her moods crash into one another like waves against jagged rocks, leaving Chelsea dizzy and terrified. She tries to reason with her, to plead, but Allison's grip on reality has eroded. Logic holds no power in the world Allison has constructed. Love, twisted into possession, is the only currency she understands. Meanwhile, Anita cannot sleep. The city beyond her window continues its indifferent rhythm, but for her, every tick of the clock is unbearable. Madison sits across from her, pale and exhausted, but unwilling to leave. The younger woman's hands fidget restlessly, her voice breaking as she replays memories of Chelsea's warnings, subtle hints she had ignored or misunderstood. Anita listens, her heart breaking not only for her niece but also for Madison, who now carries the weight of guilt for not protecting the one she loves. Anita realizes, with a clarity she hadn't had before, that Madison's love for Chelsea is not fleeting. It is steady, fierce, and honest. The kind of bond Chelsea had been searching for all along. That knowledge makes Anita's mission even clearer. She cannot allow Chelsea's story to end under Allison's control. Bill storms through the hours like a man possessed, refusing to stop his search. His voice is raw from phone calls, his knuckles bruised from pounding doors in demand of answers. Each dead end only sharpens his rage. And yet beneath that fire lies the unmistakable trembling of fear. Danny stays close, offering a steadiness that tempers his recklessness. Their history is layered with scars, but now those scars feel irrelevant when compared to the wound of their missing daughter. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they remember the countless nights they once soothed Chelsea as a child, the mornings they watched her grow into someone brilliant and determined. To imagine that light being snuffed out by Allison is unbearable. And so they press forward together, knowing their bond may be fractured but not destroyed. As dawn creeps in, Anita receives a call that shifts the weight of the night. A contact of Bill's remembers seeing Allison near an abandoned property on the edge of town, a place long forgotten by most but perfectly suited for hiding what one doesn't want found. The detail is vague, uncertain, but it is enough to ignite both hope and dread. Bill immediately insists on going alone, his anger blinding him to the danger, but Danny refuses to let him. Madison volunteers to join as well, her voice shaking yet determined. Anita looks at all of them, recognizing the fragility of the moment. If they charge forward recklessly, they risk losing Chelsea entirely. But if they wait, every second could tighten Allison's hold. They choose to move, their small group bound together by desperation. The drive is tense, the silence punctuated only by the hum of the engine and the occasional whispered prayer from Danny. Bill grips the wheel so tightly his knuckles whiten, while Anita sits beside him, scanning the road with eyes sharp from sleeplessness. In the back seat, Madison stares out the window, rehearsing words she hopes she will never need to use. Please to reach Chelsea, promises to pull her back if fear paralyzes her. Inside the decrepit property, Chelsea feels her body regain fragments of strength. Her mind races through possible escapes, but Allison seems to anticipate each thought, hovering too close, her presence suffocating. Allison's voice grows louder, ranting about how no one else deserves Chelsea, how the world has twisted her, how Chelsea belongs to her and her alone. The words carve into Chelsea's chest like blades. She knows she cannot outmatch Allison physically, not yet. But she clings to one weapon, endurance. If she can survive long enough, Maybe, just maybe, someone will come. The group arrives as night begins to fold back into morning. The property looms, abandoned yet alive with menace, its broken windows and sagging frame whispering of secrets it should never hold. Bill charges ahead, his instincts screaming that Chelsea is inside, but Danny and Anita restrain him just enough to keep focus. Madison lingers at the edge, her eyes fixed on the building as though she can feel Chelsea's presence through the walls. The plan is fragile, improvised, but they know they cannot wait for formalities or official procedures. Time is too cruel a luxury. Inside, Allison senses something, her paranoia flaring. She whispers to Chelsea that they are coming, that the world wants to take her away, but that she will not allow it. Chelsea's pulse races. The thought of her family arriving fills her with hope, but also dread. She knows Allison's desperation makes her more dangerous than ever. She tests the ropes at her wrists again, biting through the pain, desperate to be ready for the moment that might come. Bill bursts through the door with a ferocity that shakes the silence. His shout echoes through the hollow rooms, a father's roar fueled by rage and love. Allison reacts instantly, dragging Chelsea closer, her hand gripping a shard of broken glass she had kept nearby. Her eyes blaze as she screams that no one will steal Chelsea from her again. The confrontation is raw, volatile, teetering on the edge of catastrophe. Danny steps forward, her voice trembling yet strong, pleading with Allison to see reason. She speaks not with anger but with a mother's heart, appealing to the fragments of humanity that may still linger in Allison's fractured mind. For a moment, Allison falters, her grip wavering as conflicting emotions clash within her. Chelsea seizes the hesitation, using every ounce of strength to pull against the ropes, cutting her skin but loosening the binds. Madison finally steps into the room, her presence like a sudden light in the chaos. She calls to Chelsea, her voice filled with the certainty of love, reminding her that she is not defined by Allison's cruelty but by the life and future waiting beyond this nightmare. Chelsea's eyes lock onto Madison's, and for the first time since the ordeal began, she feels her strength returning not just from survival but from love itself. Anita watches from the doorway, her heart in her throat, realizing that the fate of her niece may hinge on the balance between rage and compassion. Bill is ready to lunge, to end it violently. But Danny and Madison's words create a fragile opening, a moment where Chelsea might break free. The scene stretches like eternity, every breath weighted with danger. Allison's grip tightens once more, her desperation boiling over, and Chelsea knows the decision must come now. She throws her weight forward, forcing the shard of glass to clatter from Allison's hand, and in the chaos Madison rushes to pull her away. Bill surges forward at the same instant, his fury finally unleashed, but Anita calls his name, grounding him before he takes a step that cannot be undone. Chelsea collapses into Madison's arms, her body trembling but her spirit unbroken. Danny rushes forward, her sobs echoing in the hollow room as she holds her daughter for the first time since the nightmare began. Bill stands frozen, his chest heaving, torn between the urge to strike Allison down and the relief of seeing Chelsea alive. Anita places a steadying hand on his shoulder, reminding him silently that the true victory lies not in revenge but in survival. Allison, now cornered, screams in a voice that is both furious and broken, a sound that shatters against the walls before fading into silence. She is no longer a looming specter but a shadow collapsing in on itself, her power stripped away by the very people she underestimated. For Chelsea, the moment is not just rescued but rebirth, the reclaiming of a self that Allison tried so hard to erase. The drive back is quiet, heavy with exhaustion but laced with relief. Chelsea rests between her parents, her head on Danny's shoulder, while Madison holds her hand with quiet determination. Bill keeps his eyes on the road, his anger cooled into something steadier, resolve. Anita watches them all, knowing that the night has changed them forever. The secrets that once fractured them have been forced into the open, and though the path ahead will not be easy, they have confronted the darkness together. Chelsea will carry scars, both visible and unseen, but she will also carry the love that pulled her back. Danny and Bill, once consumed by bitterness, now see in each other the reflection of shared strength. Madison, who revealed her heart when it mattered most, remains at Chelsea's side, a reminder that healing is not done in isolation but with those willing to fight for you. And Anita, who pieced together the truth, finds herself both shaken and strengthened by the knowledge that family, though fragile, can also be unbreakable when tested by fire. The story does not close with neat resolution but with the messy, hopeful threads of survival. Chelsea's path forward will not erase what Allison did, but it will no longer be defined by it. She has been tested beyond the gates of despair and pulled back into the arms of those who refuse to let her go. The days that follow are heavy with silence, the kind of silence that is both a relief and a burden. Chelsea is home, no longer bound by ropes or sedatives, but the weight of what she endured lingers in every breath she takes. Danny hovers close, unwilling to let her daughter out of sight, while Bill's protective instincts sharpen into vigilance. Madison rarely leaves her side, her presence a quiet anchor, her hand often linked with Chelsea's as if to remind her she is no longer alone. Anita watches all of this from just a step back, both proud of her family for rallying and afraid of how fragile this unity might be once the immediate danger fades. Allison's arrest is swift. The evidence left behind at the abandoned property, coupled with Chelsea's testimony, is enough to ensure that she cannot slip away. Yet even behind bars, Allison's shadow stretches, her name a whisper that makes Chelsea's shoulders tighten. There are moments when Chelsea closes her eyes and still hears her voice, taunting, pleading, threatening, all tangled together in a web of control. Therapy sessions begin, each one peeling back the layers of pain, each one demanding courage. Chelsea's journey forward is not about forgetting but about reclaiming her voice. Bill throws himself into action, channeling his rage into advocacy. He begins speaking with lawyers, demanding that Allison face the full weight of justice, while also researching laws about coercive control and abuse. Danny, in contrast, becomes Chelsea's day-to-day guardian of peace, filling their home with warmth, preparing meals, and surrounding her daughter with reminders of normal life. Their approaches differ, but for the first time in years, Bill and Danny complement one another rather than clash. The crisis has forced them into alignment, a reminder that despite their fractured marriage, they share the same core, love for Chelsea. Anita notices the change between them, the softening of edges once sharpened by bitterness. There are late-night conversations in the kitchen, voices low but calm, where they share hopes for Chelsea's healing and admit their regrets. It is too soon to know if this will rebuild their marriage, but it has rebuilt something more important, their ability to trust one another again. Chelsea senses it too, finding comfort in the rare sight of her parents laughing together, however briefly. Madison remains steadfast, though she carries her own wounds. She grapples with guilt for not recognizing Allison's escalating danger sooner, but Chelsea reassures her again and again that love is not measured by foresight but by presence. Madison was there when it mattered most, her voice cutting through the chaos, pulling Chelsea back to herself. Their bond, once a secret, now stands in the open, and though it is met with initial hesitation by Bill, he gradually accepts it. The moment he sees Chelsea smile genuinely in Madison's company, his resistance fades. Danny, more quickly, embraces Madison as part of the family, grateful for the love and devotion she has shown. The family's recovery is not linear. There are nights when Chelsea wakes gasping, haunted by dreams of ropes tightening, Allison's voice whispering in the dark. On those nights, Madison is the first to reach her, speaking softly until the tremors ease. Anita sometimes joins, offering tea or simply sitting in silence, her presence another thread of reassurance. Bill, though less adept at gentleness, finds his own way to comfort, checking the locks twice before bed, patrolling the house in the early hours, ensuring that his daughter knows she is safe. Danny keeps the house filled with light, with flowers and laughter, reminders that life is not just survival but joy. Weeks turn into months, and slowly Chelsea begins to reclaim herself. She resumes work on her project, though this time with stronger boundaries, determined not to let the past consume her future. She speaks at a small event, her voice trembling at first but gaining strength as she shares her story not of victimhood but of resilience. Madison watches from the crowd, pride swelling, While Anita wipes away tears she tries to hide, Bill and Danny sit side by side, their hands brushing, a quiet reminder of what has been rebuilt. The ordeal has changed all of them. Anita has become more open, less guarded, realizing that secrets often fester in the dark. Danny has embraced her role not just as a mother but as a woman who can forgive, who can let go of old grudges for the sake of what truly matters. Bill has shed some of his stubborn pride, learning that strength is not only in fists or fury but in patience and presence. Madison has grown into her courage, no longer doubting her place in Chelsea's life. And Chelsea herself has transformed, scarred yet stronger, no longer defined by Allison's shadow but by the light she fought to reclaim. The ending is not dramatic, not wrapped in the finality of a neat bow, but it is real. Chelsea knows healing will be a lifelong process, but she also knows she is not alone in it. Surrounded by family and love, she begins to see the path ahead not as a road haunted by what was taken but as a horizon wide with possibility. And so the gates that once seemed like barriers to fear and despair now stand open to something else entirely: resilience, unity, and the promise of a life rebuilt.